The Wars of Light and Shadow has the best prologue, bar none. Or at least for me. I think that this is the best prologue out there. And right now, I'm going to do a dissection of it. There's going to be no spoilers. So first I'm going to read it out to you. And then we'll talk about it. Alright, let's go. The Wars of Light and Shadow were fought during the Third Age of Aethera, the most troubled and strife-filled era recorded in all of history. With this first sentence, we are able to get a couple pieces of information about what is going to happen throughout this story. We know that it's going to be in the Third Age. What that means, we don't know. We know the name of this world now. It's called Aethera. And we also know that what is about to happen is going to be a conflict that is extremely major, that spans the course of this continent, or this place, or whatever it's called. And then we continue on. At the time, Arathon, called Master of Shadows, battled the Lord of Light through 5 centuries of bloody and bitter conflict. With this, we understand the 2 key players of this story, which go onwards. Arathon, the Master of Shadow, and Lysair, the Master of Light. Did it say that? It just said Lord of Light. And, which is, I actually think it's very interesting now that I think about it. Arathon is named here. Lysair is the Lord of Light, who we later find out in, like, the next chapter. But he's not named. Arathon is the first named character in this entire prologue, in this entire series now. We have a name for somebody, and I think that sets the precedent of, this is going to be the guy we follow. Arathon, this man, who we've just been given the name of, is going to be the guy we follow, because he's the only name we know. I mean, admittedly, that doesn't happen all the time, but I think it sets a precedent here. It weasels the name into our heads and says, huh, this Arathon guy, I wonder if he's going to show up again. He shows up again. If the canons of the religion founded during that period are reliable, the Lord of Light was divinity incarnate, and the Master of Shadow a servant of evil, spinner of dark powers. Now we get a very interesting thing here. If the canons of the religion at the time are reliable. If they are reliable. I think that's very interesting, because these people, whoever we're being told this story from, is putting into question the religion that they know about from this period in time. They are stating immediately, we don't know if this is true. We do not know if our knowledge is correct or if it is incorrect. And so it says that there's a bit of unreliability. It says that over the course of this story, things are going to be destroyed. Yes, we know, obviously, there's conflict, that there will be strife, and that things are obviously destroyed in strife, but we also know that history will be lost. Knowledge will be lost. We will not just lose things here. We will lose knowledge. We will lose information, and that is the thing. That is their problem. They don't know the information. Going on. Temple archives attest with grandiloquent force to be the sole arbiters of truth. So, I think that's another thing that's very interesting. It says that the people are the temples say that they are the only people telling the truth. I don't know what grandiloquent means, so if you know in the comments, please enlighten me. But to me, I'm reading that sentence as the people who lead, or the temples, would always say, we are the only people telling the truth. And because of that, it's absolute. And I think that is a very important aspect. Because they are saying that they are absolute, their truth is absolute, we get a little bit more information, and it's kind of, we're thinking, well, if they're saying that they're absolute, that puts their statements into question. People who are not humble tend to not be correct 100% of the time. That's from my experience. And the reason I love that statement is because it tells us these people think very highly of themselves. They're very arrogant because they believe they are telling the only truth. There is no other truth. Nobody else can tell the truth but our religion. And I think that's deeply interesting because, as I said it before, if you are saying you were the only person in the world to tell the truth, then you are probably full of shit at least sometimes. And because there's so many different perspectives in our world that if you say you are the sole arbiter of truth, then that puts you into question as to whether you are a reliable source. Me personally, I'd say anybody who says they are the sole arbiter of truth, they are a very unreliable source. Continuing on, yet contrary evidence supports a claim that the master was unjustly aligned with evil. Fragments of manuscripts survive which expose the entire religion of light as fraud and award Arathon the attributes of saint and mystic instead. A very interesting aspect I want to point out. We still have not named the Lord of Light. In these 2 paragraphs, there are 4 paragraphs in this prologue, we have not named the Lord of Light. We have consistently given him the name Lord of Light rather than calling him by the name which we learn next chapter. We continue only referring to Arathon by name. Nobody else has been named. Continuing on. I think that another important fact is that there is still evidence against what we just heard. And I think it is also important to contrast those. Look at the order in which they are presented. We are being told about the religion of light first, then how the religion of light is being refuted by surviving manuscripts. I think that's also extremely interesting because it says, okay, this is what we know, and then it brings up the small things, the few things that have survived that also say, that's not quite right. And I think that's so interesting because by bringing up this large thing, this thing that is the center stage, by focusing on the religion, and then we criticize the religion, we bring up the topic, then we criticize it down here. I think it's really smart because we have the idea of this religion that's a little bit unreliable, and then we hammer it in a little bit more, saying, yeah, there is evidence against this religion, but we still don't know. Because the factual account lay hopelessly entangled between legend and theology, sages in the 7th age meditated upon the ancient past and recalled through visions the events as they happened. This sets up the POV of the narrative. I think that's super important for this story. It tells us this is the way we're going to be looking at the story. We're looking at the story through the eyes of these 7 sages. Is that what they were called? I think it's just called the sages. Just the sages in the 7th age. So we get multiple things from this. Number 1, we are told the 7th age is the perspective at which we are looking down on this story. 7th age being where we're taking this, or where this story is being told from, and the 3rd age being where the story will take place. And so we know this is set in the far-flung future after the events of what's about to happen in the story that we are about to be told. And I love that because it sets up a weird framing narrative that says, hey, we're looking back as these guys who are able to look on the past in hindsight. We can say, look at this little thing, look at that little thing. By the way, I just want to be very clear, I am totally taking that from AP Canavan. That is a brilliant point that he pointed out. That small point. But regardless, going on. Contrary to all expectation, the conflict did not begin on the council stair of Atara, or even on the soil of Athera itself. Instead, The visions started upon the wide oceans of the splinter world Dasen Elur. This tells us a couple things. Number one, it tells us they know so little. They clearly do not know that much. Because if they don't know where the story actually started, where this conflict actually began in in its true form, then we have to put into question everything that we've just been told. All the manuscripts, all the points that they brought up about the religion of light, that could all be completely inaccurate. Because they just said they don't even know where this conflict started. And by putting that up for dispute, they tell us that everything before that is up for dispute, making you question the entire prologue, making you question everything that you were just told. Isn't that brilliant? Holy shit. Man. Anyways, for the last section, this is the chronicle the sages recovered. Let each who reads determine the good and evil for himself. I think this last line is brilliant because we, as the reader, are constantly judging this entire prologue. We are trying to find out what is the truth in this prologue. And not only are we trying to figure that out, but we are also being told we don't know. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell you as much as we know, and you get to figure it out. Because throughout this entire story, we're trying to figure out who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, and it's typically not just that black and white. But what's so smart about it is that Janny Wurts is trying to make us think about who is in the right, who is in the wrong immediately. Right off the bat, she's making us try and wonder. She is trying to make us determine who is the good, who is the bad, and are they really good and bad? But we don't know, we don't have enough information, so we're trying to sort them into categories. Is the Lord of Light good? Is the Master of Shadows bad? Who is in the right, who is in the wrong? We're trying to figure that out immediately. That's what we're trying to find out. Like, for example, in these the first two paragraphs, it's talking about how the Master of Shadow was viewed as evil, the Lord of Light was viewed as good, and then it says Master of Shadow was sometimes viewed as good and attributed as a saint. So we're constantly questioning who is good, who is evil, and then she says, that's the point. I want you to read this story and find out who is good and who is bad. And I want you to decide that all on your own. It's brilliant, this entire prologue, because she's making you think exactly what she wants you to think, or she's making you think in the way that she wants you to think, and then says, you fell for my trap, now go do that on a larger scale. It's so good. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. That's it for now. I'm not going to make little chop bits for this, but this was a ton of fun. I love this prologue, and ever since I read it back in May, it has easily been my favorite prologue. And the last sentence of, let whoever reads this determine the good and evil for himself, it sticks with me, and I love it so much. Anyways, I hope you all have a great day, and see you all next time.